After we saw one of the biggest trades and biggest moves of this NBA offseason so far, after the Minnesota Timberwolves had acquired center Rudy Gobert, the Minnesota Timberwolves are now looking to make a championship caliber roster that is in a win now mode. And I'm here to say today that the Minnesota Timberwolves are not only going to be a top 3 team in the Western Conference this upcoming season, this is a championship level and caliber team. They are going to be competing for the NBA Finals this upcoming season. Now, after the Minnesota Timberwolves sent the NBA world into absolute shock, giving up the haul that they gave up for one of the best defensive players in NBA history and one of the best defensive players of this generation, and a guy like Rudy Gobert, the Timberwolves were clearly showing to the NBA world that they're trying to compete and win now with a roster that's very and extremely top heavy with elite talent everywhere you look in the front court and in the back court, while the Utah Jazz are basically moving in a different direction. Let's talk about Rudy Gobert, because this is the key element as to why Chris Finch and the Minnesota Timberwolves organization is looking to win now. We all understand that Rudy Gobert is a 14 and 15 type of guy. He's going to give you 2.5 blocks every night on a consistent basis, and his mere defensive presence is already enough even when he's not racking up the box score and the stat sheet, because Rudy Gobert is a terrific and phenomenal defender. I know we can talk about his playoff mishaps, but that's besides the point. I'll get into that a little bit later on, but also it's clearly not his fault if you actually know ball. But let's talk about Rudy Gobert and what he's actually done for the Utah Jazz and what he's going to be able to bring for the Minnesota Timberwolves at the age of 30 in the middle and peak of his prime. Rudy Gobert, just this past season as a Defensive Player of the Year candidate, was 14.7 rebounds per game, which was number 1 in the NBA, 2.2 blocks per game, third, 36.4% defensive rebounding percentage, which was number 1 in the NBA, 25.1 total rebounding percentage, number 1 in the NBA. He was number 3 in defensive win shares, and his defensive rating was 103.5 when on the court. When he was off the court, the Utah Jazz had the 21st ranked defensive efficiency. So you saw a 19 tier drop off between the Utah Jazz with Gobert in terms of defensive rating on and off the court. Rudy Gobert is extremely important to why the Utah Jazz had so much success, and that is exactly why, especially in the regular season, this Minnesota Timberwolves team is going to dominate. We've seen Rudy Gobert be a 3-time All-Star, and he's going to continue to have that type of production with the Minnesota Timberwolves. We've seen Karl-Anthony Towns be a great guy, and he's going to be able to go into a more natural position, playing the 4, playing that stretch, where he's a guy who can shoot about 50% from the field, 40% from deep. He's a 25, 10, and 3 type of guy. Karl-Anthony Towns is phenomenal. Then you look in the backcourt. We've seen D'Angelo Russell be an all-star back in 2019 with Kenny Atkinson, Karis LeVert, and the rest of that Brooklyn Nets team. D'Angelo Russell's a very good and solid contributor to this team who still has all-star capabilities in him. Then you look at former number 1 overall pick Anthony Edwards, who is looking to have a huge season and finally make his first all-star appearance in his 3rd season in the league. And shout out to Anthony Edwards Jr., man, his dog, because Anthony Edwards has got that dog in him too. But when you look at this roster, they are depleted in terms of depth, everything that they gave up to acquire Rudy Gobert, and they're losing these guys like Jared Vanderbilt, Walker Kessler, the 1st-round pick, Patrick Beverley, Malik Beasley, the list goes on. They've given up a lot, but what they're getting in return is a generational center who is going to be able to absolutely dominate in the regular season and help alleviate a lot of that pressure off of the rest of these guys. And this is exactly why the Minnesota Timberwolves, I'm here to say, are going to be a top 2 seed in the Western Conference. I'm going to put that right here on receipts right now. By the end of the 2023 NBA regular season, the Minnesota Timberwolves will have a top 2 seed in the Western Conference if they remain healthy. Now let's get into the postseason, because obviously the regular season is great and it's fun and interesting, but this is where the money is made when it comes to all NBA players, and this is where legacies are made in the postseason. I believe that the Minnesota Timberwolves will not only be making the Western Conference Finals for this upcoming season, this team is absolutely capable of making the NBA Finals. I won't quite say that yet, but this team will finish in the Western Conference Finals at bare minimum this upcoming season. Everyone wants to talk about Rudy Gobert and his mishaps in the playoffs. He's unplayable. You have to bench him in the last couple of minutes of a 4th quarter in a tight game in the playoffs. He can't guard the perimeter. You hear the chatter, you hear the noise, I understand the results. You can talk about Trey Mann and the LA Clippers and the 2021 NBA Western Conference semifinals and how he absolutely exploded onto the scene in Game 6 and destroyed Rudy Gobert and that defense that the Utah Jazz were running. But the reason Rudy Gobert can be successful in the postseason is it comes down to perimeter defenders actually defending. When you look at the Utah Jazz, Donovan Mitchell, Bojan Bogdanovic, Mike Conley, Jordan Clarkson, the list goes on. A lot of these guys are solid to okay defenders at best. Royce O'Neal was a very good perimeter defender, but none of these guys were great or elite on that side of the ball at the perimeter. Maybe Mike Conley back in his heyday with Grit and Grind and the Memphis Grizzlies, but that's not who the Utah Jazz, and that's not what Quinn Snyder was able to do. He was reluctant and unwilling to make the necessary changes in order to make Rudy Gobert successful. When you have guys getting blown by on the perimeter and Rudy Gobert has to come and help, that obviously is going to leave three-point shooters out and open, and that was the problem with the Utah Jazz come postseason time. It wasn't the offense, it wasn't Rudy Gobert being a 14-point per game scorer, and it wasn't Rudy Gobert's lack of defense. It was the team and the foundation and the roster construction around Rudy Gobert. If Rudy Gobert can have solid and good defenders on the perimeter around him, this Minnesota Timberwolves team is going to be successful. They are very top heavy with guys, like I say, like D'Angelo Russell, Anthony Edwards, Karl Anthony Towns, and now Rudy Gobert. Do I think that they're better than the Golden State Warriors right now? That remains to be seen. Do I think that they're better than a healthy Clippers now with John Wall and Kawhi Leonard and Paul George coming back off injury and Ty Lue being one of the best coaches in the game? That remains to be seen. There's a lot of talent in the West. The Memphis Grizzlies are still a young and upcoming team, even though I still don't quite believe in them. The Minnesota Timberwolves clearly showed an ability to not only go and compete in the playoffs, this team, I think, is ready to make that next step, and that's why this organization felt comfortable giving up their entire future and some players right now in order to acquire Rudy Gobert. This Minnesota Timberwolves team will be making the Western Conference Finals this season. They are a championship caliber team. But Timberwolves fans and NBA fans, I want to hear your thoughts in the comments down below. What do you guys think about the Timberwolves, and what do you actually expect out of them this season? I have absolutely seriously high expectations for this team this upcoming season. I think that a championship is not out of reach for this team, and I do think that they have the talent in order to take that next step. Obviously, injuries and a lot of other things will play a factor into that, but I want to hear your thoughts in the comments down below. And if you guys are new here, consider hitting that subscribe button to stay tuned for more Jaguars and, of course, NBA content that I do here on YouTube. I want to say thank you all again for sticking around throughout the whole video. Brett James, aka BJ, I'm out, y'all. Peace.